Welcome back. Like, share, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Today, witness the heartwarming story of a young mechanic, Alex, who helps a little girl take her first steps after years in a wheelchair. Her billionaire mother watches in tears as hope and courage come alive. Let's get started. In a quiet suburban neighborhood of Dallas, Texas, the late afternoon rain pattered softly against the pavement, creating a rhythmic backdrop to the nearly empty streets. Alex, a 28-year-old mechanic, wiped the grease off his hands as he surveyed his small garage, a cramped space filled with worn tools, spare car parts, and the faint smell of oil and rubber. Despite the modesty of his surroundings, Alex took pride in his work. Each vehicle that came through his garage, no matter how ordinary, received his full attention and care. That day felt no different until he heard the gentle crunch of tires on wet asphalt outside. Peering through the fogged glass, Alex noticed a sleek black luxury SUV slowly pulling up in front of his garage. Rain ran down its polished surface in thin rivulets, and the headlights reflected off the puddles lining the driveway. The vehicle's presence alone exuded wealth and authority, and Alex felt a flicker of curiosity. The driver's door opened with precision, and out stepped a tall, elegantly dressed woman with sharp features softened by worry. Victoria, 42 years old and unmistakably wealthy, moved with grace, but her posture betrayed tension. Behind her, a small figure in a worn wheelchair wheeled forward an 11-year-old girl named Emma, her face pale yet hopeful, clutching the sides of her creaky chair as if it were her lifeline. Victoria approached Alex, her heels clicking lightly against the wet concrete. I need help," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Alex, instinctively calm, stepped forward. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, keeping his tone steady despite the subtle air of tension surrounding the woman and her daughter. Victoria explained, struggling to maintain composure, that Emma's wheelchair had broken yet again. The joints were loose, the wheels misaligned, and every movement caused Emma discomfort. She added that doctors had given up hope on Emma ever, walking again that no treatment or therapy had succeeded. And now their last resort was a local mechanic, someone with a reputation for honesty and skill. Alex listened quietly, noting every detail. He crouched beside the chair, his hands moving over its worn surfaces. He felt the slight looseness of the front casters, the misalignment in the back wheels, and the faint creaking of its joints with each small push. His eyes met Emma's, and he noticed something that made him pause, a soft, hopeful smile despite the obvious weariness in her posture. "I'll do my best," he said gently, offering reassurance that went beyond mechanical skill. Victoria hesitated, a flicker of skepticism crossing her face, but the sincerity in Alex's eyes was undeniable. Somehow, she knew that this young mechanic's promise was genuine. Rain continued to fall around them, tapping against the SUV and pooling in the cracks of the driveway. Alex carefully lifted Emma's wheelchair into the garage, motioning for the two of them to follow. Emma's small hands clutched the sides of her chair tightly, her legs barely moving as she adjusted to the new environment. The garage smelled faintly of oil and metal, a comforting scent for Alex, but foreign to the mother and daughter. Tools lined the walls, from wrenches and hammers to diagnostic equipment for cars, and the dim light filtering through high windows gave the space a cozy yet industrious feel. Alex inspected each part of the chair methodically. He tested the wheels, rotated them to feel resistance, and examined the braces for structural weaknesses. Emma watched him with wide, curious eyes, tilting her head slightly as if she could anticipate every movement he would make. Victoria stood silently behind, her hands clasped together, eyes darting between Alex and her daughter. Despite her wealth and resources, she found herself powerless in this moment, relying on a mechanic to restore hope for her child. A quiet tension filled the garage, punctuated only by the soft hum of rain on the roof. As Alex worked, he spoke softly to Emma, "We're going to fix this. You'll feel better soon." His tone was calm, encouraging, and for the first time in months, Emma allowed herself to hope. She shifted slightly in her chair, testing the support as Alex adjusted the back brace. Each click and turn of his tools was precise, deliberate yet gentle, as though he were treating more than metal and rubber. Victoria's eyes softened, realizing that this young man's care was personal. It wasn't just a mechanical fix, it was a gesture of empathy and understanding. By the time the rain slowed outside, Alex had finished the initial inspection. He nodded to himself and then turned to Victoria. "We'll need to make a few adjustments, add some reinforcements, and possibly a custom support for her legs. It might take a day or two, but I can do it." Victoria felt a lump in her throat, a mixture of relief and gratitude swelling inside her. She had encountered doctors, specialists, and therapists, but none had inspired the quiet confidence that Alex's words and demeanor conveyed. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice cracking slightly. Emma's gaze met Alex's once more. There was a spark in her eyes, a glimmer of trust that had been absent for months. "Will it hurt?" she asked softly, her small voice trembling. Alex shook his head gently. "No, I'll make sure it's smooth. You won't feel the rough parts anymore." Emma's lips curved into a faint smile, and Victoria felt tears prick the corners of her eyes. Something profound had shifted in that small garage, an invisible bond forming between mechanic, child, and mother. Alex began dismantling parts of the wheelchair carefully, explaining each step to Emma and Victoria as he worked. The wheels were removed, cleaned, and lubricated, braces were tightened, and weak joints were reinforced. Emma watched, fascinated, her eyes tracking every movement. Victoria stood nearby, overwhelmed by a mix of anxiety and hope. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe that a miracle might come not from a hospital, expensive treatments, or specialists, but from a simple, diligent mechanic with a kind heart. The evening grew darker as the rain faded and the sky cleared slightly. The light in the garage, a mix of soft overhead bulbs and the last of the natural light filtering through the open doors, highlighted Alex's focus and precision. Emma's wheelchair was no longer just broken, it was transforming into a tool that might allow her a chance to move with confidence and stability. Victoria's hands trembled slightly as she watched, realizing that the solution had come from the most unexpected place. Alex paused, wiping his hands on a rag, and smiled at Emma. "We're almost there. Tomorrow you'll try sitting in it again. You might notice a big difference." Emma's smile widened faintly, and Victoria's chest tightened with emotion. The day had started with uncertainty and fear, and yet here they were on the edge of hope, guided by the skills and kindness of one young mechanic who refused to see limits in a child's potential. The garage was quiet, except for the soft hum of rain dripping from the roof and the occasional squeak of tools. Alex, Victoria, and Emma lingered for a moment, each processing the events of the afternoon. In that small suburban garage, surrounded by tools, metal, and the scent of oil, a powerful bond was forming, one of trust, hope, and the quiet understanding that kindness, diligence, and empathy could sometimes achieve what money and medicine could not. By the time night fully descended, the three of them left the garage, Emma safely in her chair and Victoria offering repeated, heartfelt thanks. Alex simply nodded, his expression calm, yet inside he felt a quiet satisfaction. He had not only repaired a wheelchair, but he had also opened a door to possibility, courage, and hope for a young girl whose world had felt broken. The rain-soaked streets reflected the dim streetlights, shimmering like a promise that tomorrow could be brighter, stronger, and full of steps yet to come. And so the story began in a small, quiet garage in Dallas, with a humble mechanic, a worried billionaire mother, and a fragile child. That rainy afternoon marked the start of something extraordinary, a journey of patience, ingenuity, and heartfelt determination. One act of kindness, performed without expectation, had set into motion a chain of events that would transform lives, heal hearts, and remind everyone involved that sometimes the smallest gestures hold the greatest power. Over the following weeks, the small Dallas garage became a place of transformation, where Emma's world slowly began to expand beyond the limitations that had confined her for so long. Each day, Victoria would drive up in the sleek SUV, watching nervously from the doorway as Alex worked meticulously on the wheelchair. The garage smelled faintly of oil and metal, yet within that space there was an atmosphere of hope and quiet determination. Alex would greet Emma with a warm smile, encouraging her to try sitting upright as he adjusted the braces and supports, explaining each modification with patience and care. Emma's small hands would clutch the sides of her wheelchair, trembling slightly at first as she tested the newly reinforced wheels. The custom support system Alex had designed allowed her legs to bear weight gradually, something she had not experienced in years. Each tiny movement was met with encouragement. "That's it, Emma. You're doing amazing," Alex would say softly, his tone both instructive and reassuring. Victoria, standing to the side, would wipe her eyes discreetly, marveling at the dedication of this young mechanic, who refused to see limits in her daughter's abilities. For all her wealth, she realized that money had never offered the hope she now witnessed firsthand. Alex's modifications went beyond simple repairs. He designed braces that fit snugly around Emma's legs, carefully balancing comfort and stability. The wheels were smoothed and adjusted for effortless movement, while hidden reinforcements provided balance without restricting her motion. Each day, he taught Emma to shift her weight slightly forward, to push with her arms, to trust the chair, instead of veering it. Emma's progress was slow but visible, a few inches forward one day, slightly longer the next. Each victory, no matter how small, sparked cheers from Alex and tears from Victoria. The first day, Emma managed to balance for several seconds without assistance. The room seemed to hold its breath. Alex stood a few feet away, ready to catch her if needed, yet allowing her to experience the triumph firsthand. Victoria clutched her chest, unable to contain her emotion. I can't believe this," she whispered to herself, voice breaking. She had spent thousands on doctors, therapies, and experimental devices, yet none had delivered the spark of hope she now saw in her daughter's eyes. The mechanics, ingenuity and compassion had achieved what she had long thought impossible. Alex maintained a gentle rhythm in the training. He would have Emma practice slowly, focusing on proper balance, posture, and cautious movement. Each repetition, however small, built confidence. Emma's face, once pale and hesitant, now glowed with determination. She laughed as she shifted slightly forward, proud of each inch she gained. The sound of her laughter filled the garage, mingling with the metallic hum of tools and soft splashes from the rain outside. For Victoria, hearing her daughter's joy after months of despair was more valuable than anything money could buy. Occasionally, Alex would step back to assess progress, making subtle adjustments to the wheelchair, tightening a bolt, repositioning a brace. Emma would observe with curious eyes, sometimes mimicking his gestures with her own hands. The interaction created a bond of trust, mutual respect, and encouragement between mechanic and child. Victoria witnessed this unique relationship with awe, realizing that Alex's kindness was shaping not only the wheelchair, but also Emma's belief in herself. For the first time in months, she saw her daughter smiling, confident, and moving toward independence. As days passed, Emma's steps grew longer, her balance steadier. She began pushing herself forward intentionally, testing the limits of the chair, trusting the support Alex had engineered. Victoria's pride swelled with each movement. She whispered affirmations, clapped softly, and sometimes wiped tears when Emma managed to reach Alex's outstretched hands without falling. The garage had become more than a workshop. It was a sanctuary where possibility replaced fear, creativity overcame limitation, and determination was nurtured with patience and love. Alex's attention to detail was evident in every component of the wheelchair. He had reinforced the frame to prevent wobbling, calibrated the wheels for smooth movement, and integrated hidden features to encourage proper posture. His work allowed Emma to experience a level of freedom she had never known, providing the foundation to build strength and confidence. Each successful movement was celebrated with gentle applause from Alex and emotional smiles from Victoria. The progress, though incremental, brought hope that seemed to grow exponentially with each passing day. By the end of the third week, Emma was able to stand with minimal assistance, pushing herself slowly across the garage floor. Alex observed quietly, pride and humility evident in his posture, while Victoria's tears flowed freely. She whispered words of gratitude to Alex, acknowledging that no medical procedure or expensive device could match the value of the mechanic's dedication and innovative spirit. Emma's joy radiated throughout the room, a testament to the power of perseverance, compassion, and human connection. In that small garage, hope had transformed despair into possibility. The morning sun poured softly over the quiet suburban street, glinting off wet pavement and casting warm light through the small clouds that lingered from an early drizzle. Alex stood a few steps back, watching intently as Emma gripped the newly modified wheelchair, her small hands shaking slightly with nervous excitement. Victoria hovered close, her elegant frame tense with anticipation, eyes glistening with tears. The garage, her mechanical tools and clutter seemed distant compared to the importance of this moment, the culmination of weeks of dedication, patience, and unwavering faith in Emma's potential. For the first time, the promise of movement felt real. Emma's legs lifted hesitantly, testing her balance as Alex spoke softly, "Take it slow, Emma. You've got this." Each step was deliberate, small, yet monumental, a victory she had never thought possible. Her face, bright with concentration, held a mixture of fear and determination. Victoria's hand trembled as she reached forward instinctively, ready to catch her daughter if needed. But Alex's subtle nod encouraged her to let Emma explore her strength. The street, lined with modest houses and flowering shrubs, became a stage for an extraordinary feat of human perseverance. The first few steps were tentative. Emma wobbled slightly, her feet pressing against the pavement with uncertainty. But the wheelchair's supports and braces steadied her, and Alex's quiet encouragement infused courage into each motion. Victoria's breath hitched as she saw her daughter moving independently, the smallest victories etched into every careful movement. A smile slowly spread across Emma's face, laughter bubbling out uncontrollably as the realization dawned. She could walk, each tiny step, though, supported, symbolized a breakthrough, a tangible result of determination, innovation, and love. Alex's pride was quiet but profound. He had watched countless hours pass in the garage, painstakingly modifying the wheelchair and training Emma to trust her legs. The meticulous work of balancing the braces, adjusting the wheels, and designing support mechanisms had finally come to fruition. Now, seeing Emma take steps outside, breathing in the fresh morning air, he understood the depth of what they had accomplished together. For Alex, this was more than mechanics. It was about human connection, fostering hope, and witnessing the triumph of resilience over limitation. Victoria's tears flowed freely, unrestrained. She rushed forward, wrapping her arms around Emma as the child's small frame leaned into her mother's embrace. You're walking, my baby," Victoria whispered, voice quivering with emotion. The simple act of holding her daughter as she took independent steps crystallized years of worry, fear, and desperation into a moment of pure, unfiltered joy. Emma giggled against her mother's shoulder, the sound like music that filled the empty street with warmth, echoing the miracle that had unfolded in their lives. Neighbors peered from behind curtains and across the street, witnessing a quiet spectacle of human achievement. The story of a mechanic, a dedicated mother, and a determined child was becoming known throughout the community. Alex, modest and unassuming, stepped back slightly, allowing Victoria and Emma their intimate moment while quietly observing their progress. His eyes reflected pride, humility, and satisfaction. The satisfaction that comes not from recognition, but from having made a tangible difference in someone's life. It was the fulfillment of purpose, manifested in action. Emma's confidence grew with each step. She began to let go of the wheelchair handles gradually, trusting the strength in her legs. Victoria's support remained steady, but her encouragement was softer now, letting Emma's independence shine. The street seemed transformed, each step a celebration, each laugh a testament to resilience. The contrast between the child's newfound mobility and the months of helplessness that had preceded this day was stark, reminding everyone involved that persistence, compassion, and ingenuity could overcome even the most daunting obstacles. By mid-morning, Emma was walking further and more confidently, occasionally looking back to meet Alex's gaze. A silent understanding passed between them, an acknowledgement of the countless hours, the sweat, the careful adjustments, and the trust they had built. Victoria joined Alex briefly, expressing heartfelt gratitude, knowing that no medical intervention or financial investment could have replicated what had been achieved through patience, creativity, and determination. The small garage and this suburban street had become symbols of hope and the extraordinary results of ordinary people taking extraordinary care. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the neighborhood, Emma took her final steps for the morning, stopping before Alex and Victoria with a wide, victorious smile. Tears glistened on Victoria's cheeks, and Alex's expression remained quietly proud. The miracle of movement had arrived, not through wealth, but through kindness, skill, and unwavering faith. Emma's laughter rang out across the street. Victoria's embrace remained firm, and Alex's hands, once greasy and worn from tools, had become instruments of life-changing transformation. That day, independence, hope, and joy intertwined seamlessly. The story of Emma's first steps spread quickly, first through local conversations, then via social media. People were moved by the tale of a humble mechanic who had restored mobility and hope to a young girl, alongside her mother, a billionaire who had witnessed firsthand the power of human kindness. Alex's work became a quiet legend in the neighborhood, a reminder that miracles are often the result of dedication, empathy, and unassuming talent. For Victoria and Emma, their hearts had been profoundly touched, forever changed by a man who simply cared enough to act. By late afternoon, Emma could walk steadily across the street without assistance, occasionally laughing and reaching out to her mother's hand for guidance. Victoria's tears continued, a mixture of joy, relief, and gratitude for the simple miracle she had witnessed. Alex remained in the background, satisfied but humble, knowing the impact of his actions would resonate for years to come. The small garage and suburban street had been transformed into a canvas for a story about resilience, compassion, and the enduring power of kindness. The sun began to set, casting soft pink and orange hues over the quiet neighborhood. Emma practiced her steps a final time, each movement more confident than the last. Victoria held her hand, whispering words of encouragement, while Alex observed with quiet pride. The community around them, even if unaware in person, could feel the ripple of the moment through the stories spread. The experience had taught everyone involved that miracles are possible, not through wealth, but through ingenuity, patience, and the genuine desire to help others succeed. By evening, the garage doors were closed, and the three returned inside to rest. Yet the energy of the day lingered. The laughter, the tears, and the tiny footsteps of triumph echoed in their hearts. Emma had regained a freedom she had long thought impossible. Victoria had discovered a deeper appreciation for the small, meaningful acts that can change lives. Alex had fulfilled a quiet purpose, realizing that real success is measured in impact, not wealth or recognition. That day, the power of kindness, skill, and patience had been immortalized in memory.